Welcome to Freedom Bros. I have a co-host, a step bro this week. What's up, Brian Allman? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Now, I know that we were talking before the show about things, and your wife was in the background. Did you guys do anything special for Valentine's Day?
No, we don't do much formal stuff. She did make the children fun breakfast with were the pancakes heart-shaped or just pancakes? Heart-shaped pancakes. So
Family affair here. I love this.
Some fun stuff.
You didn't take her out to dinner?
Maybe later. We made homemade pizza instead.
Okay, that's also good. But also subscribe to the Gem State Chronicle, Brian's publication.
Please. Thank you. so we can afford to go out to dinner.
Yes, absolutely. We have an amazing show for you tonight. I'm thankful that Brian Allman, who is one of my favorite writers in the Idaho political sphere, is with us, replacing Greg Pruitt, who is out sick. Tonight we have Faye Thompson of McCall, who is challenging Megan Blanksma, the recently ousted former House Majority Leader. She's from District 8. I believe she's actually hails from Hammett. How we got two legislators from Hammett, a town that nobody has ever heard of, is amazing to me. But we're going to talk to Faye Thompson and see why she thinks it's time for Megan Blanksma to go. Before we do that, we're going to play our way over the top stinger, so plug your ears. This is episode 35 of Freedom Bros. Whew. I'm going to the gym after this, and that's I'm ready to go.
Just play that on repeat.
Yeah, it'll put it on Spotify and let it roll. Brian, how are you?
I'm still well.
I asked that very, very shortly ago. Okay, so before we get to Faye, who is in our studio diligently waiting for us to stop being dumb, Brian, you are at the Capitol all the time these days, which I'm kind of jealous of. That's fun. I love those days in my career when I was able to do that. Before we get Faye on real quick, give us your thoughts on the session so far. What's the biggest surprise? What's disappointing? What do people need to know about what's really going on in the Capitol right now?
Well, we're at about the halfway point. It's been really interesting. I don't have years of experience in Idaho politics to compare it to, but from other people who have, it sounds like this is a unique year for a lot of reasons. The maintenance budgets are a big deal. JFAC changed the way they do things, and hopefully it's going to bring more transparency and fiscal conservatism to the process, to how the state spends your money, both your state taxes and the federal money they pull in and distribute. And that really was a big deal, because you had the chairs of JFAC, Senator Groh and Representative Horman, came in with this new process that's supposed to make the process more transparent. And there was a revolt. Who knows who was behind the scenes, but one day all the members of, all the establishment members of JFAC came in and just overruled it all. And it looked like the new process might be dead, but no, the chairs held their ground, and it seems like the speaker held his ground, and they came in and, they ended up defeating this coup. And, the person we're going to be talking about today, the incumbent in District 8, ended up losing her position in leadership over it. So, that's not something that happens every year, so I've been told.
I've been doing this for 15 years now, and I've never, ever seen anything like this. In fact, I've never seen committee members buck a majority or a chairman and get away with it. This is what they tried to do was absolutely unheard of. And it's nice that a head rolled over this. I wish a few more would roll, because we've seen our people, the conservative people, punished for not exactly the same thing, but punished for disobeying chairman or whatever. So, at the end of the day, it is a nice conservative victory for lawmakers and for Idahoans, who hopefully will reap some reward from the new budgeting process, which could and should lead to lower budgets. I would hope. Maybe we'll see, right?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, because maybe the speaker should have taken the opportunity to shuffle up JFAC. I don't know if he has, really the ability to do that at this point or enough political capital, because the establishment big spenders still have the majority on that joint committee. And so they're still going to be able to push through a lot of big budgets. It's just maybe we'll see a little more of how the sausage is made.
Yes. Oh, man. And there's a lot of bills coming through. I know Brian Lenny's anti-SLAPP legislation, which I'm very, very interested in, so I can continue trash talking on Twitter. Has hit the. Was it introduced? It was introduced. Is it in the House or the Senate first? I think it's in the Senate first, right?
Yeah, I believe he introduced it in the Senate, and it's awaiting a full committee hearing now.
That's right. I'm deciding if I'm going to testify or not, because half the people on the committee are probably not fans. So
that's it's in Senate State Affairs, right?
Yes.
That's a tough.
Or is it might be Senate Judiciary Committee with Todd Lakey, because it's.
No, you're right. It is. Right? It is Senate Judiciary and Rules.
Yeah, that committee's a little bit friendlier to me, but not much. Okay, cool. Brian, thank you so much for that recap and that look at what's going on. If you don't follow Brian at the Gem State Chronicle, you can follow him on Substack. I think he has a website now. I should know that. I'm a paid subscriber. What's your Twitter handle? Because he is always tweeting. He's like the new Betsy Russell, but not dumb. So what's your Twitter handle, Brian?
At Gem State Brian.
That's right.
And that's oftentimes if I'm sitting in a committee or watching the House or Senate, I'll just live tweet it. I joked the other day that my real childhood dream for what I wanted to do when I grew up was to call baseball games. So this is the next best thing. I'm calling committee hearings and just doing a play-by-play.
Is it the next best thing though? Because okay.
For those of us into politics, maybe.
Standards, buddy. Okay. The other thing that Brian is really good at, I'm really jealous of, his meme game is on point. So every once in a while, he'll pop up with a meme that just either makes me very angry or very happy, which I think is the point of memes either way. So, all right. The guest tonight, Faye Thompson of McCall. She is going against Megan Blanksma of Hammett for a seat in the Idaho legislature. Faye Thompson, thank you for joining Freedom Bros. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Typically how this works is we start by getting to know who you are and why you think that you should have the ability to govern me and Brian or Greg, but anybody else. So let's start with that before we get into the deep questions about policy and politics. Who are you? What's your background? And why do you think that you're qualified to govern?
Well, I've been in Idaho most of my life, lived in the mountains all of my life. My family's been in Idaho for a few generations on my mom's side, but I'm married. I've got 11 grandkids, 4 kids, and I've been in Valley County for almost 50 years now. So I've got a pretty good grasp of what goes on here in Valley County. My husband is actually a Valley County commissioner, and he's actually running for re-election this year too. So we get to run together a little bit. I am chairwoman of the Valley County Republican Central Committee. I am also secretary treasurer of our local chapter of Friends of NRA, which I've been doing that for about 10 years. That's a really good program that helps raise money for the shooting sports. And we do love to fund kids programs for learning how to shoot and handle guns and stuff like that. They've got some really good groups around the state. And so that's pretty much me. I'm not really exciting because I've been in one spot for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I've actually, my husband ran for the U.S. Senate against Jim Risch back in 2006. And that's when I first started getting a little interested. And then the little interested started getting into a lot interested and started getting involved with the Lincoln Day events, and then moved on to the central committees. And it wasn't long before I was vice chair. And then I've been chairwoman for the last 2 years. And that's had some some good times and some crazy times. We're not too exciting up here in Valley County because we've got, 12,000 voters. Or well, in population, they don't all vote,
Right.
unfortunately.
Sure.
But so a lot of people don't pay a whole lot of attention to Valley County. But last summer, it was just before the 4th of July. My opponent was at a Valley County Republicans women's lunch. And it was, of course, after the legislature inadvertently got rid of our presidential primary. And she was asked about that. It wasn't me that asked about it. It was somebody else. And she said, and basically she just went, oh, it'll save us $2.5 million every 4 years. We're not relevant anyway in the presidential process. And I'm thinking, we've got 32 delegates. Why aren't we relevant? And you're in leadership. Why aren't you working to make us relevant in this process? And she said, I'm just not interested. And that was the end of that discussion. So I got really, really little miffed at that and her whole attitude about, it's like, if it's not in my interest, or, if I don't want to do it, I'm just not going to do it. And the whole time she's sitting here playing on her phone. It was the time when the Phoenix University, that whole debacle was going on, and she was taking calls and stuff like that, and had no idea. I know that the calls were about that because she said so. I don't know what they were about, but I really got to thinking about seriously considering this. Although I wasn't seriously considering running against her, I was going to go for the Senate seat. And Dorothy called me one day. She says, I heard you're looking about running for the Senate. I said, yeah. And she's, well, call Christy. So I called Christy, and Christy, she says, well, if you're going to run, I won't. I said, no, if you're going to run, I won't. And we just kind of went back and forth. And I said, Christy, you're going to run for senator. I will run for representative.
It's kind of like when I ask my wife where she wants to go to dinner, like there's no answer there. Like, is that just the back end and the forth? That, well, you run. Okay. Well, yeah. Christy's going against Jeff Schroeder up in your district, who is, oh my gosh. The nice thing is that Christy is well known. She's been elected there several times. Yes. She's got good pedigree. Let me ask you this. I want to go this direction. Are you like Christy Zito? If you were to be elected, would you emulate her, try to be like her, or is there somebody else in the Idaho legislature that you would like to be like?
Well, Christy, absolutely. Scott Herndon, Heather Scott, Brian Lenny. There's some really amazing people in the legislature that Jason Gallagher. There's just great people in there now that are good conservatives. And yes, I hope I emulate them. I really do. And they're people that I would draw to get in, before I'd make big decisions. If I had any questions at all, I would go to those type of people, because I know that they would be honest with me and help me put my vote, together, my decision.
Right.
So, hi, Faye.
Right.
I'm looking at, I was just doing a little bit of reading about, some of the history there. Looks like Hammett is a very small town.
Yeah.
So do you know all your neighbors there? Have you and Representative Blanksma run into each other in the past? Is there a history there?
Mostly we've just run into each other at Lincoln Days and luncheons with the Republican women up here, parades up here. Other than that, no. I think I've driven through Hammett maybe twice in my life. It's not a destination place. It is definitely
so I imagine you're all pretty spread out up there in Valley County.
We're very rural. We really are. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to run too, is seeing that we have all three of our representatives out of Elmore County. Valley, Custer, and Boise County are way different culturally and economically different than Elmore County. They've got more agriculture and the Air Force Base, and we have tourism and logging, mining, and recreation all over the planet. We need balanced representation throughout our whole district. And we really, really do, in order to properly represent our district, because we are so different in so many ways.
So we mentioned how Christy Zito, she has some name recognition because she previously
Oh,
served
yes,
in the Senate. Whereas you're maybe coming from a disadvantage. So how are you going to be able to get out there to the population centers of your district and knock on some doors, go to some events and get your name out there?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, next week I'll be in Mountain Home, I think on Tuesday, and Garden Valley this Saturday for a meet and greet. Then there's, of course, the Lincoln Days. I'm going to spend a lot more time on the road. I might even take my camp trailer down to Mountain Home and park it for a couple of weeks so that I can actually have that to spend more time down there. Elmore County is really, population wise, I need to spend a lot of time down there. But until the caucus is over, I'm the caucus coordinator up here. So I'm doing quite a bit now that we're just almost to the caucus. I've got a lot going on with that too. So as soon as that's over, I can really concentrate on the campaign and do, like say, the door knocking and going to businesses and just getting to know people better, especially in Elmore County.
So I was looking at Representative Blanksma's electoral history. She first got into office, it looks like in 2016. She defeated the incumbent, Pete Nelson. And then since then, she's really not been challenged. She hasn't had any primary challengers, and the Democrats rarely run anyone against her at all. You're very Republican county, so the election is the primary. Do you have obviously you don't want to tell all your secrets and give away your game plan, but you have an idea of how you're going to convince voters in your district to switch horses, so to speak?
Well, for one thing, she hasn't been challenged before, and at least not really. But our budget, the state budget, she, her voting record is spend, and like this latest JFAC coup that you guys were talking about earlier, that was all over in the middle of that. And because she likes being able to pass those big budgets all in one package so that more money. She's wanting to expand Medicaid. We've got to rein that in. We can't keep getting money from the federal government to fund health and welfare and expand our Medicaid to able-bodied individuals that should be working. But unfortunately, getting a check from health and welfare is almost $4 to $6 an hour more than what a lot of workers are getting out in the workplace. And so there's things that we have to look at there. Then yesterday, one of her pet projects, the harm reduction project.
Who didn't see this coming? Who didn't see it coming?
Oh my goodness! I had several legislators saying, "You've got to go after her for that needle exchange program. You just have to go after her for that." And
so wait. Hang on. Let's back up. Tell our viewers, because I think Brian and I both know what she did and what this is. Tell our viewers what she did and what happened with the raid. Just provide some context for us, will you?
Okay, I'll provide what I can. I didn't really know much about this until I had other legislators telling me, you've got to look into her needle exchange program. So I started looking, and then came up with the our Idaho Harm Reduction Project. I keep wanting to call it an act, but it's a project. And this was her bill. She introduced this. She got it through the legislature. And I'm not real sure. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think it was all on ARPA funds. ARPA funds are temporary funds. It's not a program that's sustainable. And so, but this, no society should provide the instruments with which to inject poisons. That's, we shouldn't. And it's also something that doesn't work. So when I was reading about it and finding out more about it, they actually will give someone a dose of meth or methadone or cocaine. They actually have these drugs on site to help them get through so that
Nice.
they don't go die in the gutter because they're in the DTs or whatever, like you do with alcoholism and you get cut off suddenly. It helps them get through, hoping that they can convince them to go into treatment.
Amazing.
And, yeah, so needle exchange program, well, that's a benign thing. That sounds very benign. But the rest of the program, oh my goodness. But so yesterday, I just kind of popped on the KTVB. I kind of scroll through to see if there's anything interesting. And the headline online was BPD issues a search warrant and for paraphernalia and what was it? I think it was for drugs for distribution.
Yep.
So it's like, okay.
So
I didn't have to say anything.
So
I didn't have to
let's
say
just
a word.
hear me out for just a second.
Okay.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. You guys may or may not agree with me. I'm just of the opinion, like I've read limited, like Proper Role of Government by Ezra Taft Benson a few times. Like I'm just thinking maybe the government shouldn't be in the drug distribution business. Like I don't know. Like, am I maybe I'm an extremist for saying that, but like I feel like actually giving drugs to drug addicts is not something that I want my money to fund. Anybody else? Maybe what about you, Brian? Is that you cool with that?
No, yeah, it's absurd, and I think Nicholas Kleinworth over at Idaho Freedom Foundation did some work last year on how these harm reduction programs really end up not harm that they say they are. It's just enabling drug use, and we've seen in cities that have adopted this. I think Vancouver, BC adopted it a while ago. Portland, Seattle, they have various versions of this, and it only leads to more drug use, obviously, because you're enabling this harmful addictive behavior. You're not actually you're not actually doing anything to stop it. And there's a deeper level on a Assemble X Space earlier this evening with Freedom Caucus. Somebody, I forget who, said that the harm reduction program, even though it's a private organization, essentially a private nonprofit, they receive over 90% of their funds from the government. And it's the Idaho state government that's enabling those funds, even if they're federal funds, to go to them. So you have this private organization that's essentially enabling drug addiction, and they're doing it on your tax dollar, and they feel entitled to that. And then now they're obviously and they're surprised and shocked that the police finally came and said, hey, you're these things you're doing are actually illegal. And I just looked up while you were talking, and it's House Bill 180 in the 2019 session, needle exchange, sponsored by Representative Blanksma.
Yep. Yeah. I was blown away. I had just been talking to somebody about it the night before that warrant was served. I was like, you've got to be kidding. How could the stars be aligning for me? Her ousting as majority chair, and deservedly so because of her involvement with the coup. And, and moving on to the budget.
Okay. Hang on.
Yeah.
Do either of you have any inside information? Because look, correlation is not causation. Is that the same? I don't even know. But okay, so there was the coup, right? And then all of a sudden, Megan Blanksma was out. Like people have suggested that she was in charge of it, or that she orchestrated it, or that she played some major role. Has that ever been confirmed anywhere? Because I don't know. Like I don't have enough time to keep up on things all the time. But like, does anybody know what role she actually played in the coup?
Actual role, probably not. However, she did an interview the next day or 2 days after the ouster. And I think it was on PBS, or the BSU station. And the reporter actually asked her if that had anything to do with it, if her involvement. And she said, oh, I think it did. So, yeah. So I think she admitted to some implication.
I haven't heard anything specific. Obviously, that
Yeah,
rumor's been out
not
there.
specific.
But yeah, I watched the interview you're mentioning, and the reporter did ask her if it, had anything to do with maintenance budgets, and I don't think she really said either way. However, she went into how she disagreed with the budgeting process, and one thing she actually said is that the reason she did is because she didn't think that the process of splitting the maintenance budget from the new line item increases served her constituents in her district. So what do you think of that? And, do you see things differently with regards to what the citizens of District 8 are actually looking for in their representative?
Well, she says she has the trust of her constituents in District 8, and she does not. I have not yet talked to anybody that liked the way she does things, the way she votes. Everybody, they want her out. They want her out. She's just, she's on Governor Little's shirt tail all the time, and the lieutenant governor. That's where she wants to be. And I think she forgot where she came from, and it's time for her to move on. It's time for us to term her out.
So I want to get into a deep discussion about things and stuff, which is very precise on my part. It's fun, and I love ripping down incumbents who are the worst, and she's one of the worst. I've actually liked the ouster was fantastic because I know that she's very, very ambitious, and she wants to be in leadership. She wants to be, higher up somewhere, right? Super ambitious, right? Which is, I suppose that's fine. It's not what I want, but whatever. Let me ask this, but I want to know, what are you going to do? What's in your platform? What, if you get elected, say next session, you have a conservative majority, or at least some conservatives in the House, you can do some stuff. What do you want to do?
Oh, I want to rein in our budget, for one thing. It's grown by 54% in the last 4 years. It's doubled in the last 6 years, and 6 years is a very short period of time in politics. We have to cut back on our budget. It's the only way that we can cut back on taxes. I would love to see a strong effort to eliminate sales tax on food. Big time. There's no reason for us to have sales tax on food, and especially in this economy right now. And if we do get a Republican president, it's going to take a while for things to turn back around again. And
well, let's dive into tax policy for just a second. We have so many taxes. I mean, we're taxed on everything. Tax on money you earn, tax on money you spend, tax on your house, tax on almost the air you breathe. Certain purchases made out of state, you don't pay tax on, you're taxed on those. Everything is taxed, right? So you can only do so much.
Right.
What's your priority in terms of taxes? Income, property tax, grocery tax? What do you want to do tax-wise?
I think grocery tax would be a really good start. It would really serve the people of the whole state much better if we could cut that. That would be, I think, for me, a priority. And then I would work a little bit more on the property tax. I know this last tax cut, I think our personal tax, property tax went down maybe $40. That wasn't very much. I mean, we're not in a position where we're on our fixed incomes yet, and we're doing okay. My husband's business is doing really well, so it doesn't affect us as much, but I do know a lot of people around me that it does.
And let me be clear. This is a pet peeve of mine. I'm sorry to cut you off, but this one drives me crazy. The very recent property tax cut that everybody saw, not at all a cut. Not in any way, shape, or form was that a freaking cut, right?
No.
People who, Mac is a friend of mine and a longtime freedom guy. Property tax is ridiculous. What they actually did is they took money from the state budget and they gave it to smaller units of government, right? Kind of to ease the pressure on them. But the interesting thing is, anytime you give free money to any government entity, the prices go up. So economics tells us, if you look at like higher education, when did that really start to skyrocket? When they put way more money into, Pell Grants, all the free stuff they give you at college. And because they don't care about prices, they don't, when they're getting their free money. And they're people much smarter than me have studied this, but basically that's how it goes, more or less, right? So there is no incentive for small governments, units of government, cities, counties, mosquito districts to cut their budget or to stop their budget growth. None, zero. So I just had to go on that for just a second. Not a property tax cut in any way, shape, or form, just moving the money around. And as a renter, I'm very pissed about it, but regardless.
Yeah. Well,
Brian,
like I said, it didn't help me. It didn't help me a bit.
We got $40 back, so you can buy at least one carton of eggs, right?
Yeah. We had $12 eggs here a couple of years, or a dozen eggs, up here a couple of years ago. It was, if you could even find them. It was ridiculous.
Brian, time for some gun questions because you are sitting in for Mr. Pruitt. Go to it, Brian.
So you've talked about your connection with the NRA, but I hear a lot from people who think that the NRA just doesn't go far enough to protect gun rights. Where do you stand on things like, say, red flag laws? Is there a common sense way to maybe take guns from somebody who might be dangerous?
That was really hard for you to ask, huh?
Yeah, red flag laws. No, I am not in favor of red flag laws. I think you've got to have some kind of there's some constitutional boundaries that we have to stick with. And yeah, if the guy is waving his gun or he's fired it at somebody and actually made a physical threat or caused harm, yeah, let's get the gun away from him. But there's better ways to do it. We don't need more of those kinds of laws. That's just another gun control. And I am a life member of the NRA, but I have my pros and cons on how they do things and how they're lobbying and stuff like that. And the Friends of NRA we're not the NRA. We are separate. We have our completely separate. We only raise money for the foundation. So yeah, we are separate from them. But
I know there's a few gun bills coming up before the legislature this year. One of them, I'm sure the big lawsuit that Scott Herndon was involved in with the city of Sandpoint, where they leased out a public park to a private organizer to do an event, and that private organizer said you can't take guns there, and so they sued, and the Supreme Court went 5-0 that they were within their rights to do that, and that essentially creates a loophole in our state laws. As long as a city of Boise could find some third-party corporation and just lease everything out and say, well, sorry, you can't have guns there. Legislature's trying to tackle that now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know I was on the resolutions committee at our winter meeting for the IDGOP winter meeting. And one of the resolutions that we had come before us, and we passed unanimously, I believe, was if these gun-free zones, if this resolution does make it before the legislature and they do pass it, this would make those people, those businesses that say we're a gun-free zone, they have to provide armed security so that it's not a soft target anymore. So schools, we need the teachers to have the ability to be armed if they want to. They need proper training, absolutely, but that's available. There's a lot of great programs that is available, and it's not forcing all the teachers to be armed, and which is actually good because nobody knows who's got the gun in the building or how many, and so that's no longer a soft target. But yeah, we need more school resource officers. I know we don't have any up here in our schools at all.
So Mac in the chat here has a good question. He just says machine guns, and that, I think that's really an interesting question because what was it, 1986, the National Firearms Act says that certain weapons you're not allowed to buy, or you have to go through very a lot of hoops and loops and fees in order to own one of those weapons, an automatic weapon, say. What do you think about that? Should that just be repealed?
Yeah, that could be repealed. Yeah,
Can we hang out sometime? You sound like you're a lot of fun. Let's hang out sometime.
I own a lot of guns. I really do. I win a lot of guns at events. I don't know why, but
I still want to hang out with you. That makes it taste even more.
I do carry, but Yeah, we're on machine guns. It depends. What is a machine gun? What defines a machine gun? Are we talking an AR-15? That's not a
No.
machine gun. That's a hunting rifle. It's just a 223 hunting rifle. It just looks sexy.
Wow. Wow.
Especially when you put that big lucid scope on it.
Good thing Greg's not here. He'd be getting hot and bothered. What about a tank? Should I be able to own a tank?
A tank?
Yeah.
Why would you want to?
I mean, the founding fathers would have liked a tank, right? Like,
Yeah. You had private cannons and private warships back then.
Man,
because remember, liberals want you to think, and even some conservatives, when they do their campaign ads, they tell you what they really think about the Second Amendment. They put on their cowboy hat, they put on their barely broken boots, they put on their fake Wranglers that still have creases from the store. They get their shotgun and they go shoot trap or skeet or whatever it's called, right? I'm not a gun guy. That's what they think the Second Amendment is for sport or for hunting. That's not what it was for. I want a freaking tank.
Yeah, tank. Well, okay. Should we? Yeah. Do our police departments need tanks?
Well, that's a different story entirely.
Oh, we can go into that one.
It's a different story, but yeah, we could go down.
All right, I'll let you pray about this one.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll let you. What else on guns, Brian?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure if Greg were here, he'd have some more specific questions, maybe about pending legislation or anything. But we've covered most of the basics. It's there's always a dividing line. Everybody on the right in the Republican Party says, "Yeah, I support guns. I support the NRA." But then when it comes down to brass tacks, they might admit, "Well, I want some common sense background checks and red flag laws. That's a good idea," and things like that. But it sounds like you're pretty well, kind of an absolutist on the Second Amendment.
I am, definitely. And we already have background checks. Well, I have a machine gun. So you can have one too, Dustin.
I don't want a machine gun. I made this very clear.
Yeah. I would like, what are those, the Hummers? Yeah, I'd like an up-armored Hummer.
Honestly, like, if I can't have a tank, I might learn how to weld just so I can make a killdozer. It's one. You never know when you're going to need it, right?
Just make it so you can get out when you're done, so it's not a one-way trip.
Actually, if I was in my husband's office, I could show you the tank that he has. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about killdozer, more talk about policy, I suppose, although that's a lot of fun. You mentioned Medicaid. Now, Medicaid expansion is a disaster that was put into place by the liberals a few years ago, Republican and Democrat liberals. Would you repeal Medicaid expansion? And for those who are clear, this is largely for people who are able-bodied and can work. It's giving them that population-free healthcare, which was, at the time, it was kind of like a revolutionary step for Idaho, which was like, I guess we'll support, women and kids and like super poor people, but able-bodied adults who can work.
Let me give you a good example of Medicaid expansion. 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I did not have insurance. We were at an income level that fell in that so-called donut hole. So we would have to pay over $2,000 a month just to cover me. And however, the nurse manager, she, called me up and told me the bad news that it was, positive for cancer, and I was going to have chemo and radiation and all that awful, awful stuff. And she said, "But I see here you don't have insurance." And I said, "No, I do not have insurance." And explained the whole story to her. And she's okay. "Well, now let's see. How old are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm 56. And she says, and this is breast cancer, correct?" And I said, "Yes." She's "Okay, you're covered. Medicaid will cover you. There's a special waiver that will cover you." Okay, well, it saved my life. Granted, it was there and it did save my life, but I couldn't get off of it until I did get insurance. They wouldn't let me off. So, and I wanted off. Once I went through the treatment, I had a year of chemo and I was done. I was in great shape. and they wouldn't let me get off because I didn't have insurance. So when we were able to get some, then they let me get off of it. So that's not good. I wanted off, and they weren't going to let me. So I, continued on Medicaid for a long time.
Interesting.
I've seen that these government programs, they might start with, at least it seems like they might have good intentions.
Yeah.
But then once the program is created, once the states got involved in Medicaid and then Medicaid expansion, the people who run the programs, it's like they see their job as to get as many people as they can on that program. And so then you get people, just an ever expanding, infinitely expanding population who is dependent on government. And we saw during the hearings last month about a Medicaid, basically a Medicaid reform bill that would reform Medicaid expansion, make it more efficient, and actually, get some, something in return for the taxpayer dollars we're spending. And hundreds of people signed up to testify saying, no, don't touch it. I need it. And that's, it's kind of a depressing place to be in our society.
Yeah.
So how do you wean people off that?
Well, you've just got to go back to the way they used to do it before all the expansion and that, and you had to work. There was no choice. If you could get food stamps, but you still had to work. It was just supplemental to what your income was. So there was some levels there to, there were guidelines. It's like we don't have guidelines anymore. And even to reduce the amount that is given might even be a part of it. I don't know. I'm still looking into a lot of that, but it's 60 to 90% of that health and welfare budget is from federal government money. And so we've got to wean them off of that, for one thing. Just tightening up the ability, tightening up the regulations that allow people to get on there just for whatever reason. It has to be done. It's not sustainable the way it's going. It's gonna break us.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of, this is actually a good segue to our next government welfare handout. Last year, I kind of trolled everybody on Facebook this week saying that, Barack Obama dreamed of making college free for Americans back in 2010, 2012, whatever he started that mumbo jumbo. Brad Little actually is getting it done here in Idaho.
Done,
right?
Yes.
Last year, our Republicans, with the help of Democrats, passed what's known as the Idaho Launch Project. I would go for an Idaho Lunch Project. That would be fine. Idaho Launch, on the other hand, is a welfare handout. I think it was, Brian, it was $85 million for free college for high school graduates.
For the first, the first year.
And they want to expand it. So that's $85 million a year. And they want to expand the spending this year. Now, their argument is, well, it's investing in our workforce. These are in-demand jobs, although that's a fake talking point that not at all true. Would you repeal, limit, reduce, expand Idaho Launch?
Repeal, absolutely. I've never been in favor of it because it's just a social, it's socialism, at least on the border of it. It doesn't, it's like, what would the governor say that they had 12,000 applicants of that, and then they had to bring that back to about 8,500 or something like that. But it's got to go away. It's not free money. That is helping the bottom line of major corporations, because it's paying off of our backs, out of our tax money, these major corporations' employees. It's doing their training for them. But we're paying for it. And so it's just adding to the major corporations' bottom line. And no, that's not right. That is not right.
No, it's a really good investment for them. They have to spend a few $100,000 with IACI to, wine and dine and pay off legislators, and then they get their workforce trained for free.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. Just so and so can have his welders.
Yeah. That's
100% true. 100% true. So Brian, your turn.
Oh, well, I was just going to say it's your opponent in this race was the floor sponsor for the launch grant last year. So that's that's another thing. If you ask your constituents, do you think free college paid for by taxpayers is a good idea? Well, I don't know. We'll see what they say, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see what they say. We'll see who they vote for.
Shifting gears a little bit, school choice. It's been a big issue. It's nationwide. The different states are coming up with different ideas. Here in Idaho, they tried an ESA bill last year. It didn't go anywhere. This year, they're trying a tax credit for people who do, have private school tuition, or I don't remember. I don't think this one has anything to do with homeschooling, but it is a complex issue because you have this public school system and people are trying to find ways to both improve it, but also give people alternatives. There's also bills dealing with micro schools and expanding the empowering parents grants. There's so many of these things out there. And the response from a lot of people in Boise is just don't touch public schools. Don't take money away from public schools. So like I said, complex issue, but what are your thoughts on that?
I believe that the tax money should follow the student, regardless of whether they're in a private school, charter school, public school, private school. My grandkids go to a private school at Ambrose down in Boise. It's a phenomenal school. One of my grandsons, he's autistic, and that boy he was struggling in public school. He just wasn't going anywhere. But when they put him into the private school, that kid has just blossomed. You wouldn't even know he was autistic now. And they score so well. Like throwing money at the schools the way the governor wants to and has been doing isn't doing any good at all. Because he's not addressing the root problem. I think a lot of it is what's being taught in our schools is more socialist. It's the woke agendas. They're having to spend so much time deciding on whether there's litter boxes in the hallway or not for students to use as a toilet. And I know that that is not.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Yes, it is. Actually, it is. It happened in the McCall Donley School District.
Is that true though?
Yes, it is.
Even if it's true, it's the sort of thing that the other side can ridicule. But there are obviously serious issues with the social contagions of transgenderism and teaching kindergartners about sexual things that they have no business learning about. So those things are there.
They are there, but oh my goodness, we need to let our kids be kids. But I kind of rabbit trailed off. But yes, school choice, definitely. Parents have the right to have their children in what school they want or homeschool, and the money should follow the student. But that's another tax issue too, is the seniors that don't have kids or even grandkids in the school district that are paying taxes to the schools. What's with that? And so it's something that needs to be looked at.
The argument for that one is always my favorite because they say, well, taxes for schools are the price you pay for an educated populace. Well, I want my money back.
Yes,
because we certainly do not have that. Now, could it be worse without government schools? Maybe, but I mean, maybe not.
Maybe not.
And one of the issues that everyone points to is that in our state constitution, which folks have to remember, a lot of our state constitution, it was written, our state, Idaho became a state right in the smack, at the beginning of the progressive era where people were thinking of all the great things that they could make government do. And so our constitution says that the state has to provide a free, uniform system of public schools. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the state has to be pushing this woke indoctrination and controlling the pathway to being a teacher and all that nonsense. But, there has to be something there unless we, amend the Constitution. So how do you see the relationship between money following the student, but also public schools still being there? No matter what happens, they'll still be there, and all our future voters and legislators are going to come out of that system. So how would you fix that while at the same time giving parents a choice?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure I can really answer that.
It's a deep issue, obviously.
Yeah, I know what I would like to see, but I don't know. I don't have a solution for that yet.
Well, if somebody did, then I'm sure we'd see it by now.
Yeah.
Faye, we got to wrap things up. I want to have a quick discussion with Brian before we hit the top of the hour, and I want to announce next week's guest. But the last question that I have for you, and Brian, you can have one more if you have another one. But I really care a lot, and actually this race is interesting because of what happened with Blanksma's ouster. I really care a lot about how lawmakers conduct themselves in the legislative body, not only their votes, but how they politic, basically. I forgot to ask this question in the last few guests because I'm the worst podcast host in the entire history of ever. But I'm going to ask you. Let's say you have a shiny object, your favorite baby bill, like it's whatever, like grocery tax repeal or abolishing the income tax or property tax or whatever. And leadership comes to you and says, Faye, Representative Thompson, you can have the votes for your bill, but you have to vote for this piece of crap over here. Will you trade your vote when it comes down to it?
No.
Why?
Because it's not ethically sound. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, Brian, you wrote a piece on this week. I forgot. My ADHD reminds me. You wrote a piece on this week about vote trading, right? What's your take here? Is it ethically sound? What's your take?
Well, I don't think it's a good idea. That's the conclusion I came to. Because they're not necessarily going to come out and say, "Hey, we'll vote for your awesome bill if you vote for our piece of crap bill." They're going to say, "Hey, we'll vote for your bill, but we're going to need your help passing this other bill, and it's not so bad. It's okay. It's maybe have a few problems, but just get past that." Now, the example I used in my article was this: you have Senator Cook's cell phone porn filter bill, which has some issues.
Yeah.
But then you have Senator Wintrow, the Democrat, introduced this bill to force insurers to provide 6 months of contraception instead of 3. And a bunch of Republicans voted for that bill, and a bunch of Democrats who originally voted against Senator Cook's bill last year voted for it this year. So, maybe there was some trading going on. Some people will say the ends justify the means. Hey, you get your bill through. It doesn't matter if this other bad bill gets through. But that's actually kind of leads into my question that I was going to ask. I'm looking at Representative Blanksma's IFF Freedom Index rating. In 2018, she was over 80%. That's pretty respectable. But now, as of last year, she dropped down pretty darn low. Looks like in 2024 so far, she's at 38% after being at 62% last year. And that's, you see that a lot. People go in there, they've got conservatives ideas, but then, something happens. Maybe they start trading votes to get what they want. Maybe they start working closer with the establishment, and suddenly their score just goes down. And you almost never see it go the other way. You never see somebody go in as a moderate and come out a conservative. So, you've got all these great conservative ideas. If you get in there, are you going to, trade your votes just to get something through? Are you going to, start compromising?
I would hope that I don't compromise unless it if there really is something desperately needed in that other bill that they're coming to me for my vote for. I don't know. I don't think that I would want to compromise my ethics at all. And I can say that now. I don't have the experience that others do, but I would hope that I would, seek some proper guidance before I would make that kind of, yes, I'll do that decision. And hopefully, I really only want to serve 3 terms, 4 at the very most. So 6-8 years. I hope I don't fail that miserably in that period of time.
Fair enough. All right, Faye Thompson, as a favor, you've done us a favor by coming on the show, and thank you for your time. I know it's a little bit late tonight, but we appreciate your time, your insight, and your introducing yourself to our listeners and our viewers. As a trading favor for you, we are going to trade some favors here for just a second.
Uh-oh.
See what I did there? Maybe I'm not such a bad host after all. You get to tell people how they can support you, where they can find you, any campaign pitch, whatever. You're free to do it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I do really believe that we have to have some balanced representation in our district. It's very, very important that we do. I really want to see our our state budget reined in. I want health and welfare reined in. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of ideas out there. We just need to be able to come together as one voice to be able to do this. To support me right now, my website, I'm having to rebuild it because my other one never worked, and my donate button never would work. And so the best way it's very important. Yeah. And I do, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm not good with tech. And so I'm trying to find somebody to help me with that. That's not going to cost me a fortune, but supporting me, word of mouth is really good. Talking to people financially. Yeah, I could take donations. And on the Faye Thompson for Idaho, it's the old website. It is still up. It has my mailing address on it. And I would, happy to take checks until I can get my new website up and running and get that donate button working.
I was going to ask what's a check, but
no, I'm good. I like to write checks. I'm of that generation. Sorry.
I write one a year for taxes usually. So
it's like my Bible. I like my Bible. I do use my cell phone, but I do like that tactile feel of the Bible in my hands.
Happiest day of my life was when the LDS Church introduced online tithing payment, because I literally went and I found my checkbook and I went, rip, gone. Don't need that anymore, because it was either cash or a check. Like, what?
Oh, they can track you better that way.
Well, there is that. Faye,
convenient for everybody.
Anything else for Faye, Brian?
Well, I would say, maybe we can, talk offline about the website. I know a few people who are in that business. It's something you probably want to get running, pretty quickly, so you can get out there, raise money, and get your name out there for sure. So you have a chance to make a difference.
Yep, I hope I can. I really do. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Faye, thank you so much, and good luck with the campaign.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right, now, before we get to the rest of the stuff and our next week's guest, who I'm very excited about, I need to add the disclaimer, if my camera will zoom in properly and act normal. Megan Blanksma, you are invited on Freedom Bros if you want to come. We will give you as much time as Faye got and more if you want it. We'll ask the same questions largely, not perfectly, but we believe in Freedom Bros was built to educate voters, and so far we've only had conservatives on. That's kind of what I expected, but we do want to offer you time. So Representative Blanksma, come on the show whenever you want. Brian, final thoughts, and looking forward in the legislative session, what do our viewers need to be watching? Oh, goodness.
That's where to start. It's we're halfway through the session. The budgets are coming through. The big fentanyl bill just passed the Senate today, and it's going to the governor's desk. Obviously, I've shared that I have a couple issues with the bill. I like the intentions, but there's questions about do mandatory minimums work? Is this giving too much power to police and prosecutors? Stuff like that. Unfortunately, the rhetoric around it, people, legislators were basically told, you support this or we will spend a lot of money painting you as a, anti-cop and pro-drugs. So that's a tough environment to be in. And we're coming up on what's going to be a very, very contentious primary election. You and IFA and several other groups did a lot of work 2 years ago to get some good conservatives in office, and now the umpire is striking back. So it's going to be a bloodbath. It already is.
No, it's not. It's going to be a bloodbath, but not the way they think. I promise you that. I can promise you that.
Oh, both directions. It's just going to be flying, and there's going to be a lot of money being spent in order to win these seats. What else is coming up? I guess I should look at my own website. They got this thing on the Gem State Chronicle, the session snapshot. I'm not tracking every bill because that's insane. I've just picked a couple dozen that I think are the most important and tracking where they are in the process. You got this stuff about domestic terrorism. It's going through, trying to say that, you can't be called a domestic terrorist just because you protested at a school board or even just came to a school board meeting, stuff like that. concealed carry on K-12 campuses. This is another bill that passed the House, and it's awaiting a hearing in the Senate. It's should schools be able to say that they're a gun-free zone is really the question.
Right.
Should they have that right? And Representative Heather Scott had a bill that says state agencies have to accept cash. You were just talking about checks and online giving here just a minute ago. This is kind of a preemptive bill to make sure that, say the state treasury, or if you're filing an LLC or something with the Secretary of State, they can't force you to use to pay online or with credit cards. You can still walk into an office and hand them cash. And it was kind of weird hearing people argue against that.
Right. Okay. Well, they say it's a bill. It's a solution in search of a problem, but there are so many issues that, just a tiny modicum of wisdom and foresight, you can see where things go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Heather's bill is spot on. I think it's a really good idea.
So one of the big bills that people are talking about this week is Representative Gallagher and Senator Lenny have a bill to ban mask mandates.
Yep.
Remember a couple of years ago, you had cities and counties and health districts and courthouses were forcing people to wear masks. That was a big deal here in the Treasure Valley. And this would ban that. This would say that, those government agencies cannot force you to wear a mask to conduct your regular business. And it was interesting watching the hearing the other day. You had, people testifying in favor saying, first of all, masks have been shown not to work when it comes to things like COVID in the first place. But then,
shocker.
Yeah, and then this is really going against your constitutional rights to your bodily autonomy and ability to go out and do business. But then you had the Association of Cities was arguing that they need this authority. They need to have the ability to do this. Even if masks don't work, they still need to have the authority just in case. And isn't that everything? Isn't that every discussion we have about government? Should they have the authority to do X? Should they, even if they're not going to do it, even if they're not going to use it, should they be able to do it just in case?
The answer is always no. Always no. All right, Brian, you've done us a huge favor by coming on Freedom Bros. I literally texted Brian 10 minutes before the show and I said, "Are you busy?" ? I'm sure his wife loved that. But tell people how they can learn about you, support your work, become a paid subscriber like I am. Tell us more about the Gem State Chronicle.
Well, it's this year. At the beginning of the year, I started the Gem State Chronicle. I've been writing on gemstate.substack.com since for about a little over 2 years now. But I was finding that Twitter was really downranking Substack links, so people weren't seeing my posts. So I have this new website, gemstatechronicle.com, and it's got everything that was on Substack and more, including the session snapshot. It's got a list of organizations who are in the fight. I just added the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, which is Greg Pruitt's organization. Because for some reason I didn't have it before. That was just an oversight on my part. It has different resources like the committee daily summaries, the list of bills, the LLC lookup, the Sunshine Report, the Freedom Index, all these tools you can use to see what's going on and hold your legislators accountable and take part in the process. Because that's really what I want. I want to support you as you go out there and be an informed voter, an educated citizen, somebody that communicates with your legislators and with lawmakers about what needs to be done. Follow me at Twitter, GemStateBrian. Subscribe at gemstate.substack.com. I just put out today a survey. I just want to know what people are thinking. What do you want to see out of my platform? And what are your thoughts politically? Just who are my readers? So you can subscribe for free at gemstate.substack.com. And then you can take that survey and tell me what you think. So
I took the survey. It was good. It was actually a great survey. I thought it was funny. Like, I'm not a Trump fan, and I'm sure as hell not a Haley fan. But I came to that question, I was like, neither, right? And it's funny because it was Trump with the majority, and then neither with like 26%, and then Haley had zero support, which makes sense. I mean, you're kind of a Trump guy, and you're very conservative. So, although those things don't necessarily go together, I just want to get that jab in before I close the show. I just thought Haley's campaign. By the way, we have to talk about this before we leave. I'm going to announce our next guest in just a second, but for next week. But did you see the list of Haley supporters that was released for the Idaho Guiding Coordinating Council? Did you see that list?
Yeah. So if you didn't know, Trump's campaign manager in Idaho is Theo Wold, former Solicitor General. Ran Raul Labrador's campaign. Meanwhile,
Right.
on the other side, the Haley campaign released their list of chairs and supporters, and you have, Kelly Packer was the representative for the Idaho Association of Cities who argued in favor of mask
Yep.
mandates. in
Pro-mask
committee.
Kelly Packer.
She's on
Yep.
there. Tommy Alquist is one of her co-chairs, and there's a few
Wait,
others.
wait.
It's basically a
Let's
who's
hang
who
on,
of-
hang on.
Yeah.
Let's remind people that Tommy Alquist donated to freaking Lauren McLean and Diana Laciando, right? Before Ryan Davidson took her out, right? Tommy Alquist, Democrat donor, lining up with Nikki Haley. Goodness gracious. Keep going, man.
Oh yeah, and it's the list is just a who's who of people you consider to be not the most conservative of Republicans in Idaho. I think Patty Ann Lodge was on there, former state senator. She came out and endorsed Arkush in the AG's race.
That's right.
But I mean, the Venn diagram of people who endorsed the Democrat in the AG's race because they can't stand Raul Labrador, and the people who are supporting Nikki Haley in this race is almost a perfect circle.
Yeah, no, I saw Lori McCann on there, and I was like, okay, she's one of the worst lawmakers in state history. My brother's on there, which is I don't know that he. I know that he hates Raul Labrador, so it is kind of a litmus test. Like, if you hate Raul, if you hate conservatives, you're going to be a Nikki Haley supporter here in Idaho. So, good times. She's going to lose big, and not that I'm not a Trump guy, but I am going to take some joy in Haley losing very big.
It's amusing you mentioned that about my survey, that Trump has a majority and then neither, and then looks like Nikki has 1%. So
she's gaining,
but she's still just like in Nevada where she lost to none of the above.
By the way, if I'm a state lawmaker, like Faye is actually still in the studio. Faye, if you want to do something cool, can you please put none of the above on our ballots? Because I would love, like, literally, because I live in Boise, right? I live on the Boise bench, and we are in a blue district. I would love to vote for none of the above at a lot of times. Like, I'm so petty. When Mayor Beater and Lauren McLean had a runoff election 4.5 years ago, whatever it was, I literally went to City Hall, I got my ballot, and I did not fill it out one bit, but I submitted it as a middle finger to both of them. That's how petty I am. So, lawmakers, please put a none of the above option on our ballots. Okay, I got to get to the gym. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is one I've been really excited about. I got a call yesterday from Chris Boyd, who is the Adams County prosecutor. He's a friend of mine. In full disclosure, I have to say two things in disclosure. Chris and I lived in the same neighborhood in Middleton. We were actually in the same LDS ward when we lived in Middleton, when I lived there with my family. And I donated to Chris today. So I want that just to be out there so that, I'm not seen as a shyster or dishonest or whatever. But Chris Boyd has announced he's running for Canyon County prosecutor. That's a big position. Canyon County is growing. They need somebody who's very competent, very good. The reason I love Chris Boyd is he was the only prosecutor in the entire state of Idaho to publicly condemn Brad Little's stay-home order and said, I will not, as a prosecutor, enforce this in any way, shape, or form. Chris Boyd is a badass. And he's running against what we hear. This is the story. What we hear is that he is running against one of the worst political actors in the entire arena in Greg Cheney, failed Senate candidate. Greg Cheney is running against Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is going to be on Freedom Bros. We don't normally have prosecutors on, and we normally don't do local races, but this one is so important because it's Canyon County, and we need to drop Greg Cheney again, and boot him out of electoral politics once and for all, hopefully. So that's going to be a really good show. I love Chris, really good dude. So join us on Freedom Bros. Brian, any final thoughts?
Oh, that should be a great show. I got to meet Chris for the first time last month at the winter meeting, but I've been following his work. It seems like he's based, as the kids say these days. Anything to keep Greg Cheney out of public office is a worthwhile cause.
I have made 2 political donations in my entire life, which surprises people. I've made 2 candidates. Like, I made some to Idaho Freedom PAC this year and last year or whatever. But to candidates, I've made 2. Brian Lenny was my first. Like, like it was like a sacred thing for me. Like Brian is a cool dude, and he doesn't ever back down. He's a no compromise lawmaker forever. He's my dude, right? This race is so important because I think Chris has a good future, and he could be the next Raul Labrador once Raul decides to do whatever he's going to do next. So Chris is going to be with us next week, and we'll dig in more with him. All right, this was episode 35 of Freedom Bros. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Twitter. We're on. Oh wait, I dead named Twitter. Dang it! Elon told me not to do that in a tweet. Goodness gracious! But follow us on all the platforms. We're there. And if there's anybody you want us to bring on as a guest, we'll certainly make the request. We're here for you. Other than that, we will see you next Thursday at 9 p.m. with Chris Boyd, Adams County Prosecutor. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.